Dr. Mark Changizi here with your Science Moment. Free expression and reputation is the lifeblood of society. So I wanted to see if I can make that, I'm going to make that much more concrete, that intuition people have, that free expression, and it's really the transfer of reputation that occurs through all of these different kinds of free expression processes. That's analogous in many ways to the lifeblood, and by blood I mean blood in your circulatory system. Now, there are some differences. Of course, your circulatory system is centrally controlled, or at least largely centrally controlled, whereas free expression works, when it works properly, is not centrally controlled either by fact checkers at social media companies or by the government or in any way. It's entirely decentralized, which is what makes it work. But there's other respects in this circulatory respects that are quite similar. So let me just walk through these. And this is somebody, as someone who's now researching free expression itself at Tim Barber and my research institute, FreeX, the Free Expression Institute, Free Expression Group, on the one hand, and also founded a company, Vino Optics, which is about the ability to augment one's ability to see the circulation in one's body, to see the blood under the skin. And so we've got vein finder glasses and color blindness glasses and just regular sunwear that augments your ability to see the glow of youth, sort of the beauty of skin and so forth. These seem at first glance to have nothing to do with one another, but there's a lot of formal analogies between them, which is what theorists are good at seeing. So let me just mention a couple of these. So first, both distribute energy. So in the case of a circulatory system, it's about circulating oxygenated hemoglobin, circulating oxygenated blood. It needs to get to every single cell in your body in order to stay alive, and it's bringing energy also from nutrients from what you're eating, and without which your body won't function as it's designed. But in the case of free expression, or in the case of social networks, all of the entire society's social networks, what's being distributed throughout it is the reputation, and it's done by virtue of not veins and arteries, but by virtue of sequences of interactions between people who are stating things and negotiating and coming to compromises about who's right and who's wrong, or eventually potentially giving up, and the world decides who's right, and somebody loses face, somebody gains face, and then reputation shifts and moves someplace else. Over time, some get reputation rich, some get reputation poor, but it's distributed, moving throughout the system. And as we've talked about, I talked about in a recent moment, 179, reputation really is like an energy. To think about it in formal sort of physicsy terms, when you work out, as we've done in this new book by Tim Barber and myself, Express the Human, it really is an energy. What you're doing when you're engaged in interactions with others, debates and disagreements, is you're pushing in energy. You're pushing in reputation, you're betting reputation, and the more that you're disagreeable, and the more that you're sort of very confident in yourself or disdainful of the other, the more you're pushing in, and so the more you're putting at stake in that disagreement. And that it's analogous to energy, not money or something like this. So they really are both systems. Their circulatory system, that is your body itself. This is the circulatory system that feeds the body, and then the body of society itself, the thing that circulates through it, is reputation, and it's crucial for its function. For both networks, that was number one, that they're both distributing energy, because both really are a kind of energy in the mathematical sense. Also, for both networks, the nodes, cells in the case of the body, and people are the nodes of society, are stronger when they get more energy. So if you're afraid and you need to run, the parts of your body that get more oxygenated might be more of the muscles, because they need energy right now to engage in activity. And the folks who have higher reputation really are stronger. And they're stronger in the sense of they are more able to move wills. Now, we talked about this. This was a relatively recent moment, 131, and I was reading an excerpt also from Express the Human about a real sense in which, when you have higher reputation, and all of us all the time, but the more reputation you have, the more energy you have to push the wills of other people. This is why it's useful to have high reputation, is because you can sway people without physical force. This is reputation and social networks are all about how to get along you without physical force, but instead to metaphorically push people to do certain kinds of things. Both of them, one concerns physical force in the case of the body, one concerns the pushing of wills in the case of having high reputation in society. That was number two. Number three is that both networks function well only when circulation is good. In the case of the body, you have bad circulation like strokes or infarctions or any kind of clogged passageways. You end up with not just that part of the body which is hindered, but the whole body works as one and is hindered, is handicapped or worse by virtue of those poor circulation. In the case of censorship, in the case of society, the network of people, censorship and many different kinds of things can be done that hurts the circulation of reputation through society. Censorship is the most obvious, banning of individuals, banning of individual kinds of speech. All of these hinder the proper circulation within the network. And lots of different, so anything that could hinder the circulation or the right kind of circulation within the network to be efficiently done is going to hinder, including, for example, the inability to emotionally express. I've talked about in earlier moment number 81, free speech isn't really about speech per se, it's about free expression, which is why I often try to focus on keeping that term free expression. When we express ourselves, yes, we speak. Sometimes we're speaking. Sometimes we're just emoting in many contexts. But when we speak, we're always wrapping it in emotional expressions that really give us, communicate the degree to which we're confident about it and how much we really believe it. And that's crucial. If someone asks you, like some editorials, as for a magazine says, Mark, you got to tone it down or not. Well, you've got to tone it down a notch. Now, if they ask you to tone it down, they're censoring you, because the difference between speaking in a monotone voice to say a bunch of propositions versus saying it in a propositional way, only one of them actually shows that I'm confident in what I'm saying. You should follow me, you should believe me, because I'm putting reputation at stake. I'm worth believing because I'm honestly signaling that I'm putting all of this at stake. They're totally different kinds of things. That's how free expression really works. It's these transfers of reputation, which only comes through the utterance or signaling of emotional expressions. So both of them rely on the proper circulation of energy, blood in one case, which carries the energy, and reputation. And anything that hinders it is going to hurt the body of a person or the body of society. And finally, both, I believe, are distributed in hierarchical tree-like systems. Now, in the case of the body, the cardiovascular system is a big, massive tree-like system, going from the arteries down smaller and smaller trees. Eventually they lose their tree-ishness down at the capillary kind of level. Sometimes they branch and they go back together and do a lot of, but then they become a tree again with the veins. Now, when we scale from 300, from hundreds of people in a tribe that we've evolved to have, but we scale up to 300 million, there's no way to have a functioning distribution network or a functioning network that allows efficient distribution of reputation throughout it and have it all be flat without any hierarchies. Where 300 people, maybe you can, although I suspect there's some hierarchical stuff there. Here we have, just geographically, you might have my own friend group, and there's many friend groups in my neighborhood, and then there's many neighborhoods, a whole network of neighborhoods in my town, and there's a network of towns in my city, network of cities in my state, and a network of states in my country. And there's, in each case, we have networks, and we have the networks of higher level things, and the reputations can move upwards and move downwards through these kinds of hierarchical channels. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to have social networks that function at all at scale like we have today. And I'll be talking more about this. Is something we're actively working on. I'll be talking about more about that later. But I think in both cases, you also have, because circulation is crucial, circulation of energy is crucial for both bodies, networks of cells, and societies, networks of human bodies. They both are going to be driven by the same kinds of physico-mathematical demands on both of them, which always will lead to kind of tree-like hierarchical structures. So again, both cases, networks of bodies, networks of humans, require energy to distribute be distributed through them to make them healthy, to have them be healthy networks. And although we understand it very well in the case of bodies, most of us don't appreciate that the body of society itself, relies on the efficient distribution of reputation energy throughout it. And the mechanism isn't by virtue of vessels transporting it everywhere, it's by virtue of individual interactions between people, having disagreements and engaging in discussions. It's by me expressing and you expressing back and so forth. And at the end, reputation gets distributed, and it keeps happening and it keeps happening and keeps happening all around us. That is how societies function and slowly find their way to the truth without violence. And that was your science moment.